Would you like to share some simple techniques for our listeners? I mean, on a day-to-day basis, how can we do or how can we leverage proactive coaching in the in the interactions with our teams or beyond the teams? Maybe some day-to-day techniques that we can use to improve on it every day.
Yeah, I will tell you one simple technique, which is listen to your body. Your body has wisdom your brain cannot comprehend.
Does proactive coaching help Scrum Masters in giving some skills or maybe equip Scrum Masters in resolving conflicts of a team?
Absolutely. What I have done is I have expanded or applied the Designed Alliance suggestions or guidelines that the toolkit recommends or offers for one-on-one Designed Alliance, and I've tried to expand it to a team context. So, what is conflict? Very often, conflict is because of two reasons: misaligned purpose or misaligned values.
Are you a Scrum Master who wishes to become an Agile coach? Did you know Scrum Master is already a team level coach for Scrum framework? Do you know what is coactive coaching or want to learn how Scrum Master can become coactive coaches? If your answer is yes, then watch or listen to this episode till the end. To have a conversation on coactive coaching, we have Ravi Verma as a guest in the house. Ravi is a force in the agile world, juggling multiple hats as co founder, CEO, coach, and professional Scrum trainer. He's the org whisperer at Smooth Apps, where he smooths out agile transitions and optimizes software delivery. But his passion goes beyond his company. He's also a certified coactive coach, a volunteer with Agile with Ukraine, and co founded Agile for Patriots. From leading Scrum trainings to mentoring startups, Ravi has been deeply involved in the community since 2014. Buckle up for a conversation packed with insights and inspirations from this Agile veteran. So, without much ado, let's get started.
Welcome Ravi to the podcast by Agile Coaching Roundtable. It's a great pleasure and honor having you on our show. And this is our first recording of the year 2024. And to begin with, wish you a very happy new year. And today we want to have a conversation with you on the topic coactive coaching, and specifically for the Scrum Masters who are like a team coach. So how can they learn about coactive coaching while they are doing or implementing Scrum framework? So I think we want to have this conversation very candid, and we ourselves want to learn a lot about coactive coaching. So looking forward for this conversation. So welcome to the show once again.
Thank you. Happy New Year. And I'm honored that you would invite me on your podcast. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because this topic is very dear to my heart. And I have a request for to both of you and all our listeners. There's a very high probability that I will make mistakes in this podcast. So I'm requesting your grace and forgiveness. What I'm promising you is if I detect my mistake, I will acknowledge it, apologize, and we will learn from it and we will use it in service of delivering value to you.
Definitely, definitely. Uh, yes. So to begin with, we want to just start with the basics. So we want to know what exactly is coactive coaching and how does this style differ from traditional directive coaching?
Yeah. So one thing I want to share is I did not do a lot of research in other coaching models. So I am not qualified to comment on other coaching models. All I can do is I can explain to you what called me about coactive coaching, and then I will allow our listeners who are more knowledgeable than I am in other coaching models to compare and contrast and to use whatever my perspective is to make an informed decision. So for me, I'll take you back in time. Uh, I was at a crossroads in my life. I was a program manager in a networking company. I was really good at my job, but I was getting progressively very kind of demoralized, bitter, demotivated in life. So from an outward perspective, I was getting a lot of success. Great, in India, we call it MNC, great MNC company, from a middle back. I come from class background. So, our parents, if somebody asks them, so what are your children doing? If they are able to say, oh, he works in an MNC, right? Good job title, good salary, good benefits. So outwardly, I'm tremendously successful. Inwardly, I'm feeling hollowed out, demoralized. So I work with a life coach, and my life coach, Joy Perkins, she taught me a model. And the model is, I might butcher it. It's I'll start from the back. So it starts with getting things. So we want to get some things in life. We want fulfillment, we want money, salary, but benefits. And sometimes when we don't get what we want, then we start asking ourselves, what should I do differently? So we start with the getting domain, then we go to the doing domain. What do I do differently? Should I go apply for a different job? Should I be more aggressive? Should I be assertive? Should I back down? And then we're not successful. Then we go to the different domain knowing, what should I know? Oh, maybe I need to get a Scrum Master certification, or I need to get an MBA. But what my life coach taught me is sometimes the shift needs to happen in a different domain, which is the being domain. Who am I being? It's not what do I know, or what should I be knowing. It's not about what should I be doing or what should I be getting. It's about who should I be uh, being. And Joy helped me discover something about myself that I didn't know, that there was a dissonance or a misalignment in who I wanted to be at the soul level and who I was being. And when we made some adjustments there, things changed in the other domains. How is this related to your question? Fast forward many years, and I'm at another crossroads, and I'm trying to reinvent myself. And Ken Schwaber gives me a scholarship to attend training, coaching training, and it was by Lisa Atkins from the Agile Coaching Institute. So I go to the training, and Lisa is there, and there's another faculty member from Coactive Training Institute, David Darst. So they give the training. The most beautiful thing I liked about coactive training was it tries to integrate wisdom from two domains. The being domain, who are we being? That's the co-part of coactive, and the doing domain, that's the active part of coactive. And that clicked because it reminded me of the model that my life coach Joy Perkins used to help me reimagine and reinvent. So, in a nutshell, coactive coaching is trying to live a fulfilling life that honors our life purpose and our values in a way that balances these apparently paradoxical or counterintuitive energies. One is the heart, the soul, and the other is maybe the hands doing. So that's the essence of coactive.
Wow, wonderfully explained, Ravi. But maybe if you would like to put it from perspective, how you can simplify. Obviously, you said that being or doing something, but can you just simplify it from a point of view that what being means and how doing is in a certain way linked together, or how do we get it into a co-active coaching?
Yeah. And let me take you through some of my failures as a Scrum Master and a Scrum coach. So uh, I was a traditional waterfall manager, and I used to have long Microsoft project plan, Gantt charts, and I had developed a reputation in the industry as the person who would come and rescue a release. So if there's a release that's bogged down, nobody can get it out on time, you call Ravi. Ravi will get it out. So I was phenomenally successful. I was able to get releases worth hundreds of millions of dollars faster, better, cheaper than anybody else. And I was kind of doing it intuitively. And uh, I had a reputation of seeing a train wreck coming that nobody else saw, and I could protect the team and the company by anticipating train wrecks and avoiding the train wrecks when people didn't even see the train wreck. So fast forward many years, I have a 25-person team. We are creating a next gen product, and I have a 500-line Microsoft project plan. And I spent more time balancing that damn Gantt chart than I spent taking care of my team. And that's when I was brought down to my knees. Uh, and I realized maybe I don't know everything about everything. And I used to be very skeptical about Scrum. I was like, okay, here's another fad. This too shall pass. And I was very dismissive. So I hated Scrum before I liked Scrum, right? So I say like, wait, this is nonsense. I know everything. I try to do it my way. And then I realized, no, I can't do it my way. So I was very reluctantly brought to my knees. And then I started giving a Scrum a second look. And then I got convinced, started watching Ken Schwaber videos, got trained, started becoming a Scrum coach. Now I noticed a distinction between being and doing. So what happened was I had left the role of delivery manager, project manager, program manager, but delivery manager, project manager, program manager had not left me. So I was being a Scrum Master. But what I was doing is the same thing. Hey, I see a train wreck. I know you don't see it, developers or Scrum team, but here's what you should do to avoid the train wreck. So my doing was contradictory to what I am saying, which is self-managing teams. And that created a lot of frustration because people could sense my energy. Hey, I figured it out. This is what you should be doing. Just go do it. So I was not successful. I used to get cranky with people. Why don't you get it? God damn it. Scrum is so intuitive. We should use empiricism. This is how you should be in a Scrum, in a sprint planning meeting, right? So the energy from the being part was dictating the doing part, and there was a disconnect. When I shift back and I started looking at the being domain, who am I being? Well, actually, I might be being a command and control project manager, program manager who feels that he has figured it all out and he just needs the team to follow. So that was the delta between what I was doing and who I was being. And I had to come to the being part to shift. Wait a minute, am I being the values? Am I modeling the values of Scrum and the principles of Scrum? And if I'm not, let me make an adjustment there. And that will change the way I'm interacting or doing with the team.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, when you told about maybe you saw Scrum in a different lens earlier, and then you visited Scrum through some different lens now, right? So, you saw there was some disconnect between being
Correct.
and doing. And I think this is such an important thing for any Scrum Master, I would say. I mean, how did that switch happen? I mean, this happened with me as well. When, I mean, all of us, I think, as beginner Scrum Masters, we make this mistake of doing a mechanical Scrum, and then we figure out why are we even doing this when we are not getting the desired results or whatever
Yeah.
problems you're trying to solve. So, I mean, this is something for all of us to figure out that what we are doing, whether it is correct or whether it is something that we are doing as per what it should be, or whether we are just following the instructions like you said, like command and control, and you're passing on to the team. So I just out of curiosity, I know that I'm digressing from the topic, but I out of the curiosity I wanted to know that how did you or when did you realize that you are what you're doing is not what you should be doing, and how did that switch happen to you?
That's a beautiful question. This happened in the first 5 minutes of my training that I attended with Lisa Atkins and David Darst. And I'll tell you the story. And I will be very vulnerable. And I want to be transparent. So there was this one director of program management at a client who I was constantly butting heads with. And even now, as I think of him, I get some sensations in my body, sensations like it's triggering my fight, flight, or freeze response. Okay. Very strong memory. So I go to this training, and David Darst, who's the co-trainer, says, "So, who would be willing to to be a guinea pig or a coaching client?" And I wanted full paisa vasool. In Hindi, it's like I want my money's worth. So I said, "Okay, I'll go." And he starts coaching me in front of everyone. And I realized something. I realized that in my mind, this person I had already been judge, jury, and executioner for this person, in the sense this person is a command and control jerk. And before that person says a single word, that's the listening that I am bringing. And what I learned in that coactive training class was I have no business being a coach for a human being if I cannot see them as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, which is one of the four cornerstones of the coactive model. That if I cannot look at a human being and say, oh my God or universe or whatever is your belief system created this beautiful human being, what a joy and a privilege it is for me to get the opportunity to witness this beautiful person's journey and to have an opportunity to hold space for them such that they live their best life. And I realized my inauthenticity. I'm calling myself a coach, but I'm being judge, jury, executioner. And I had so much shame in that moment. And that's when I realized, oh my God, who have I become? And is this who I want to be? And that was the beginning of my journey into reflection and some course correction. And it wasn't hard. I mean, it wasn't easy. It's hard to look in the mirror and to realize that I'm not the kind of person who I want to be. And also, there is power. If I take complete responsibility, if I created that reality, guess what? I can create a different reality. So that was the moment, those first 5 minutes of getting coached by David Darst, who by the way, right now is my coach, and I work with him every 2 weeks. And that's so important because I truly believe that is hypocritical or inauthentic for someone to be a coach and to not be coached themselves. Because to me, what it is saying is, yes, you clients need help, but I figured it all out. So I eat my own dog food or drink my own dog champagne, and I work very hard on myself because it's important for me to be authentic and to apply the tools and the principles and values in my own life. Otherwise, I have no credibility. I have no business being a coach if I don't practice in my own life what I am advocating my clients to practice in theirs.
Okay. So Ravi, I mean, since we are coming down or maybe talking about interactions with the team, uh, about co-active coaching, or maybe what are the essential principles that you see of the values of co-active coaching uh, that you believe that guides us Scrum Masters in their team interactions, or maybe beyond? I mean, not specific to team interactions, but also outside the team. Would you like to talk about that?
Absolutely. The model is very simple, and I have written a blog on this, how a Scrum Master can be a coactive Scrum coach. In that blog, what I do is I introduce the coactive model and I build upon the coactive model and I apply it to Scrum. So it's like I'm putting a wrapper. Let me begin by giving a quick overview of the coactive model. So there are four cornerstones. The first cornerstone is people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. So we are holding human beings as capable and powerful to solve any problem life throws at them. This can also be applied to a team context. So we can expand it by saying teams are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And I feel that it's very complementary and aligned with the principle of self-management. So the idea of self-managing teams is we don't want an external party. We don't need an external party to micromanage a team. You give the team the right environment and they'll figure it out, right? So that's the first cornerstone. The second is dance in the moment, which is uh, similar to the VUCA world, right? We live in an uncontrollable, unpredictable world. This is what Ken Schwaber told me in my PSM1 training. There are certain things which are outside of our sphere of control. And there are certain things which are inside our sphere of control. And what Ken Schwaber taught me is that Scrum gives you a framework or a container in which you control what you can as a way to sense and respond to the uncontrollable, unpredictable world. So you could have a waterfall project plan which looks good on paper, but no plan survives contact with reality. So you have to dance in the moment. This is true for human beings, and this is true for teams. The third cornerstone is focus on the whole person. So sometimes we can compartmentalize in a relationship and say, well, this person is an IT project manager or director of IT. And if I'm coaching this person, let me just talk about Gantt charts and OKRs and KPIs and project plans. But sometimes what happens is the challenges that are manifesting in the doing domain are a byproduct or a manifestation of something in the being domain. So if I compartmentalize and I draw some boundaries and I say, no, I cannot go anywhere outside the doing domain, I'm not focusing on the whole person. I'm focusing on a specific problem. Hey, I am so frustrated with the team. They are not able to meet their deadlines. So coactive says, focus on the whole person. Take care of the human being. And the human being will take care of whatever challenges that they are facing. So yes, in the coaching conversation, problems might get solved, but that's not the purpose of the coaching relationship or the conversation. Focus on the human being. And for me, that applies in a Scrum context as well. Focus on the whole team. The team is an entity. You take care of the dynamics, and the team will take care of everything. And the fourth cornerstone is evoking transformation. Be a stand that something magical might happen from time to time, and we don't know. It's not on a Gantt chart. We don't know which sprint it'll happen. But be a stand for the possibility that the universe has given this team everything they want, and from time there might be exponential shifts in the being and doing of this team. So those are the four cornerstones. Let me just pause here so I don't overwhelm or flood our listeners. Uh, what comes up for you as you listen from the perspective of an aspiring Scrum Master, or what do you want to talk about in terms of the cornerstones before I go to the next element of the model?
What I liked about what you mentioned is take care of the person as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And instead of just being so transactional, focus on the human being. What I put it in a way is that if you take care of your people will take care of the customers or the clients or
Yes.
deadlines or the work, right? So I think this holds true at so many levels, not just at the team level, at the organization level, or whatever we are doing in life. So even if people want to kind of do entrepreneurship, right? So people take a chance on the person for the very first time. They are not aware of the product that entrepreneur is going to bring, but then what people do is they take a chance on a person first and then trust the product or whatever the person is trying to sell. So I think this is something, the first point or first starting point I would say as a Scrum Master that we need to understand is, I mean, we get to listen a lot that, you know what, all this is said and done, this looks good on paper or maybe on in books, but when we try to implement such things in reality, people say that, you know what, we are doing this because my manager has told, or because my delivery lead has told this, or because we are doing, for an example, if you talk about say Gantt chart, we are doing Gantt chart, or maybe we want to estimate on how much time it would take for us to complete the work. We know that we should not be doing that, but we want to do, we are doing it because our managers are doing. So I think this is the very first thing or very first lesson that we need to learn, that if you want to understand any new concepts, I mean, I'm trying to generalize this. So if you want to learn any new concept, first try to understand or learn the underlying values or principles of it, right? So if you get the principles right, then we know that on what basis are we trying to lead ahead. So I think these principles are, I mean, so valuable, I feel. So now what I would want to just cover is, for example, now that we have say understood the principles, so for Scrum Masters who are just starting out, so how can incorporating these principles make real difference in their coaching effectiveness? So whatever I felt, maybe I talked about how what is the value of these principles. So in your experience, how to incorporate these principles and how to make that real difference in coaching effectively?
Yeah. For me, One thing I learned when I attended a Myers-Briggs training, my trainer taught me that self-awareness leads to self-management. So the first thing that I would recommend to any Scrum Masters who are listening to this podcast is become curious about what's going on inside you, your architecture, and become self-aware, become curious about your life purpose. Imagine, fast forward, it's the last day of your life. You're looking back at your life. That's a final sprint review. You don't want to flunk it.
Wow.
What would you like to be able to say as you look back at your life? And if you were to have this feeling of joy and fulfillment, like, man, I had one heck of a ride. And here are all the things I did. Here's who I was for people in my life. What would you like to be able to say? That's your life purpose. So self-awareness leads to self-management. So first thing I would like to tell our listeners is have clarity, transparency, inspection, adaptation. Have transparency into what is your life purpose. And then try to connect the dots between how is my professional purpose connected to my life purpose. So maybe the product goal is live a joyful, fulfilling, resonant life. Maybe release goal is your professional goal, which is maybe related to that. Maybe sprint goal could be analogous to, okay, I want to be a Scrum Master. See if you can have a planning onion which connects your desire, your calling to be a Scrum Master with your professional calling to your life calling. And if you're noticing any dissonance, inspect and adapt. Is this all lining up? If not, let's do some refinement. Let's change the backlog item or let's change the goal, but they've got to be in alignment. So the first thing I would recommend is get clarity on your life purpose and see if there is alignment and resonance between Scrum Master goals, professional goals, life goals. There's another element which I did not share, which is core to coactive, which is your life values. So in coactive, they are called as contexts. There are 5 contexts: curiosity, listening, intuition, self-management, and deepen forward, deepen the learning, forward the action. In coactive, they say values are like the ground that we walk on. And if we live a life where we are dishonoring our values, it's like you are on quicksand or sand and your feet start sinking or you feel unstable.
Correct.
So the second thing I would recommend to Scrum Masters is become self-aware about your non-negotiable core values. The values which, when they are honored, they fill your mind and body and soul with joy. And the values which, when they are dishonored, they drain you. Become self-aware. And again, look for alignment. How are my core values aligned with Scrum values, Scrum principles? And to what extent am I honoring or dishonoring my values in a day-to-day life? What's the alignment between my values and my Scrum Master goals, professional goals, life goals? So for me, I would ask my Scrum Master listeners to do that. And finally, then I would say, okay, now here is this model called coactive coaching. Let me look at the cornerstones, the values, and the principles and see, is there alignment? And if there is alignment, then you take it for a test drive. So that's a 3-step process I would recommend.
Oh, wow, amazing. So before Vivek asks the next one or maybe talk about next one, I would just want to pitch in and add over here is that I'm so happy and I'm loving this conversation already because this was a similar exercise that Vivek and I did. I think few years back when we were getting into this role of a Scrum Master or maybe an Agile coach later. That I mean, we definitely wanted to do something that would add value to what the purpose is. I mean, the purpose of our life is, and achieve that purpose through our professional career. And I mean, one thing was very clear is that motivation per se, money can be a motivation at certain point of time or maybe at certain extent. It cannot be a constant motivation to drive you to do something throughout. So we wanted to get that thing right, and we said that okay, no money motivation. and we would definitely do something that we want to do and we want to help people out. And I'm really glad that this conversation came up, and it validates our point of view or thought process at so many levels, that yeah, I mean, getting that life purpose is so important, and aligning that life purpose with the purpose of our professional careers.
Mhm.
So I absolutely love this point. Thank you, Ravi, for adding that. Vivek, over to you.
Yes, Ravi. I mean, this last 10 minutes of conversation was so much thought-provoking that I was, back to my days, obviously, when I started personally as a Scrum Master, and then maybe the guidance that I was looking for, or maybe the help or the input that I was looking for. People used to talk about a Scrum Master is supposed to coach, mentor, but then back then, what does coaching or how an individual can start working as a Scrum Master into capacity of a Scrum Master with a Scrum team? What does this coaching mean? I mean, does that really mean sitting with them and talking with them? Is that coaching really? Or how it is making ensuring that as a Scrum Master you are there to influence them, and as you rightly mentioned, not commanding and controlling them, but being in the capacity to influence them, to motivate them, but just by being around with them. So how difficult it is, we keep talking about it, but when we actually start doing it, it becomes a very difficult task or difficult thing to keep everyone motivated around, by not giving them direction, by not commanding and controlling them, but still ensuring that everyone is keeping their heads high, everyone is engrossed, everyone is involved, and moving together in the right direction. That becomes a difficult task to do. And with that, as you mentioned, one of the cornerstones of eco-active coaching is evoking a transformation, right? And with on that aspect, I am also in a certain way, I believe, as a master is certainly called as true leaders, right? So do you think, when we call Scrum Masters as true leaders, but what does that really mean in practice, right? Can coactive coaching equip individual Scrum Master, or maybe as a Scrum Master, with the tools required to them to be true leader for us for a team?
Yes, great question. So what I love about coactive coaching, the Coactive Training Institute, is that uh, they have a model that is grounded in the heart, and also they provide actionable toolkits that you can use to operationalize that. Otherwise, it's all like pie in the sky, woo woo, right? Spiritual things. Let's kumbaya, let's sit around a
Correct.
fire and hold hands. Uh, so I've seen lots of models which have an imbalance. Some of them are all let's hold hands, kumbaya, but no operational details. And maybe some of them are very operational, but it's disconnected from the heart. What I love about coactive is that it marries the both. Okay. So I'll give you a concrete example. How can Scrum Master be like a leader, and how can coactive help them? One of the things that I learned in the coactive model is that in the words of one of my mentors and role models in Dallas, there's an agile coach called Derek Lane. He has a very pithy quote: coaching requires permission. And my coactive coach, David Darst, helped me discover invitation is preferable. Let me, coaching requires permission, invitation is preferable. So when we went through coactive training, they warned us, please don't go and talk to your wife and start coaching her. Coaching, you can't just randomly start coaching people who don't want to be coached. That is a violation of coaching ethics. Coaching requires invitation. Coaching requires permission or consent. Invitation is ideal. One of the biggest challenges that I have seen in our industry is that the Scrum Master might perceive themselves as a coach, but the buyer of the Scrum Master services, who could be a hiring manager, might not share that perception. They might be like, dude, I just need an agile project manager. Okay.
Wow.
And if I say project manager, everybody will throw stones at me and tomatoes. It is not psychologically safe or cool for me to put a job description which says project manager. People will say, are you living in the Stone Ages, man? Nobody uses PMI anymore. So, okay, I got to survive. I don't want to look like an idiot. Here's what I'm going to do. I will put lipstick on a pig. I will put Scrum. I will sprinkle some Scrum things, but actually just want someone to deliver on time, on scope, on budget. Okay. So that creates a dissonance because the Scrum Master is saying, I am a coach, I am a servant leader. And the person who's paying the salary is like, screw all that. Just be a project manager, damn it, get with the program. So here there's a dissonance because there is no invitation. There is no permission to be a coach. The permission is to be a project manager. So and the same applies for the coaches, the developers, or the team. The team is like, I just want to code, damn it. What the heck do you do? Do you do any real work? What do you do all day? Right? So there might be profound disrespect from the team. So just imagine you're a Scrum Master, your heart's in the right place. You want to serve people, you want to care for people. But the people you're trying to care for, or I shouldn't say the people I was trying to care for and serve, that's not how they wanted to be cared for. That's not how they wanted to be served. So from the get-go, this relationship was doomed. So the first thing to do is now I'm going to switch from the hard part, which is coaching requires permission and invitation is better, to the hands, the operational part. In the world of coaching, the toolkit, one of the toolkits that they give is called a chemistry session. A chemistry session is when a prospective coach and a prospective client have a brief conversation just to get to know each other, understand the goals of the prospective client, understand the values of the prospective client, and for the coach to share their goals and their values and to see is it a good fit. And if it's a good fit, let's move forward. And if it's not, maybe I can give you some referrals or let's part on good terms. The analog for chemistry session in our industry is a job interview. Now, this is where the Scrum Master is giving away their self-authority. They are giving the right to write the story of their life to the hiring manager or the recruiter. So the recruiter starts in the interview conversation. It's not a chemistry session. It's in India, we used to have something called Viva. It's like a Viva laboratory exam. Well, I would be trembling. Oh my God, what are they going to ask, right? So it's an interrogation. So things start going south right from the job interview, where it's not the Scrum Master saying, hey, this is who I am. This is my life purpose. This is my professional purpose. These are my non-negotiable values. Here's who I want to be. Tell me, what do you want? No, it's like, how do you conduct a sprint planning meeting? How do you manage on time, on scope, on budget? And now maybe the Scrum Master desperately needs a job and benefits. So they are like, they will say whatever they need to say. So they gave the story of their life, the penmanship to the other person. So they're writing, this is who you will be. You will be a project manager, damn it. But the Scrum Master is not establishing causality. Oh, crap. I trained them to treat me like a project manager. Now I go, but I start behaving like a Scrum Master. And they're like, no, you're not a leader. Go get in your lane, right? So how can a Scrum Master be a leader? How can coactive help? First thing is, have a chemistry session and see what you're walking into. And it's possible that in the chemistry session, you realize, dude, insurance is costly. I desperately need this job to pay the bills. They want a project manager. I will be a project manager. Take off your Scrum Master hat, put on your project manager hat, and be intentional. But that's a dissonance I'm seeing. We are not using the toolkit of coactive, which is we are not using a chemistry session. And we realize we are walking into project manager. In the interview, we're being a project manager, but when we get the job, we want to be a Scrum Master and a true leader. Not going to work.
Oh, wow. So when you talked about this chemistry session, so I related it to maybe two things. One is setting that expectations right from both the parties, right from the interview process. And second thing is when you talked about maybe seeking permission or maybe invitation, right? So can we associate it with maybe working agreements, setting
Yes,
up that working agreements?
exactly. And what a beautiful question. Those conversations are a precursor to co-creating a working agreement or a designed alliance. What do you want? What values do you want to be honored? What do you need from your coach? What do you want from a coaching relationship? How will we know it's working? How will we know it's time to bring it to an end. So that's how you co-create. If there is chemistry, one of the first things that we do is we co-create a designed alliance. And it's a working agreement. It's not a contract. It has to be constantly redesigned as frequently as needed. So you're absolutely right.
Since you talked about uh, getting the toolkit right for the coactive coaching. I mean, I had this question wherein I wanted to also say this, that I mean, if I have to think from say beginner perspective, I mean, after maybe doing coaching for a certain time, I understand what you are saying and where you're coming from. But then for people who are like very at a beginner level, when we talk about such things, philosophical thing, they tend to say that these all things good look on paper, and maybe this is not what we are signing up for, and because it is not practically possible. But the moment you talked about getting the toolkit or maybe the directions, so I thought maybe my question was already answered there. So what I want to maybe check or maybe know or learn is, Scrum focuses on goals and results, right? But sometimes team morale and motivation takes a back seat. So how can coactive coaching help you shift that focus towards both achieving goals and fostering a happy, engaged team? Maybe striking that balance between achieving goals and keeping the team morale and motivation high.
Yeah, one reason why we might devalue or dishonor or disrespect motivation and morale could be that we are uh, falling victim to a false choice. You can either have goals that's in the doing and in the getting domain, rather that's in the getting domain, or you can have morale, which is maybe in the being domain. Choose one. That's a false choice. And if we can reframe the conversation and we can plant a seed in the minds of our stakeholders and say, the getting is maybe, let's use the example of something topical, the moon lander. The getting is we want to land a rocket on the moon. The doing is use the moon lander. The rocket fuel is morale and engagement and the heart and soul of the team.
Wow.
If the rocket fuel is messed up, the moon lander is going to crash or it's going to go somewhere. So if we can reframe morale not as an either or, but rather as the rocket fuel, especially if you choose agile frameworks, because agile frameworks say you take care of the team takes care of the product takes care of the customer takes care of the company. So the job of an agile leader is actually a steward of the environment and the culture, because in the culture will germinate beautiful teams. And among the beautiful teams will germinate beautiful plants, and the plants will bear fruit, which are the products. Customers and users will eat that plant, they will get nourished, and they will give back to the company. So that's an invitation. Would the stakeholders be willing to explore the possibility that morale and the engagement is the rocket fuel that's going to fuel them, their moon lander, and landed on the moon?
Yeah. So maybe to put it in perspective is like each aspect, or maybe when we're talking about the being domain, I mean doing thing, both are really important. We need to balance it out. We cannot say, or we cannot uh, in perspective say that doing is more important rather than just being, right? I mean, in that, if you want to put it in that aspect, right? As you gave in with the analogy of the rocket launcher, right? The fuel is as important as the lander, or landing onto the moon. Without the fuel, there is high risk, and there is, I would say, a probability, less probability of reaching to your destination.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of coactive, where coactive is honoring that to live a resonant, fulfilling life, which is aligned with our life purpose and life values, you got to do both. And that's why I love coactive coaching, because whenever I'm in a session with my coach, he will end with, what are you going to do? Because if my coach just deepens the learning but doesn't forward the action, I just have a bunch of theory. And one of the biggest mistakes that I have made in my life is I have found myself falling into the pitfall of an imbalance. Sometimes it's all like, oh, let's talk about feelings. Let's sit around a campfire. How are you feeling? This is how I feel. Well, if I do 40 hours a week on just touchy-feely stuff, guess what? No action is happening, right? Or so, screw all that touchy-feely crap, man. This is the real world. We gotta be practical. We have goals to meet. Okay, but if I'm leaving the hearts and souls of people behind, you're not going to be meeting any goals, right? If you want to move fast, go alone. If you want to move far, bring the team, right? Go together. Not my quote, somebody's quote. So that's the dance that we have to dance. It's a false choice to say you can have the heart or you can have the goals. No, we can have both. And that's what makes coaching challenging. It's a cop out to say you can have one or not the other. It's a cop out. No, you can have both. And if you don't know how, get better.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ravi. And since we are at that point where you're talking about how to balance it out, would you like to share some simple techniques for our listeners? I mean, on a day-to-day basis, how can we do or how can we leverage proactive coaching in the in the interactions with our teams or beyond the teams? Maybe some day-to-day techniques that we can use to improve on it every day.
Yeah, I will tell you one simple technique, which is listen to your body. Your body has wisdom your brain cannot comprehend. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine you are about to facilitate a meeting, okay? Or you're about to have a conversation with someone, or you're inside a meeting or a conversation. Notice your body sensations. When I'm about to get on a Zoom call, like I was about to get on a call with both of you, I noticed my body was filled with joy. There was a smile on my face even before I got on the call. And we spoke about Ravi Sandhu. I noticed this when I get on a call with Ravi Sandhu, right? So I join a few minutes early. Even before he gets on the call, I have a 1,000-watt smile on my face.
And energy.
And energy. So you see the magic of Ravi. He's not there, but he's left an invisible presence as I'm anticipating. Oh my God, I get to be with Ravi Sandhu. So my body is telling me something. Oh, I really love hanging out with this guy. There are some times when I'm thinking about a meeting and my body is tightening up as I'm waiting. So my body is telling me, Ravi, something is going on. You don't feel safe, right? Or it gives me transparency that it's time to inspect what is going on. It gives me an opportunity to be curious. So what can a Scrum Master who's listening this podcast do to operationalize the essence of coactivity in their job? Listen to your body and notice as you go through a day, or even as perhaps before your day starts, notice the fluctuations, notice the transparency in bodily sensations, and be curious. Oh, when I'm about to facilitate sprint planning, this is what I feel. When I am facilitating sprint planning, this is what I feel. When this person is about to speak up, this is what I feel. And sometimes you are drawn towards that person. Maybe you're leaning forward. Sometimes you're recoiling. Oh my God, here it comes here. Be curious about the wisdom that your body has to offer and see how you might harness that wisdom in pursuit of your professional goals, life goals, and the goals of your team. So that is one simple invitation I want to share with those who are listening.
Oh wow! When you're talking about checking the body language, or maybe how the body reacts, I particularly remember my conversation with one of most obnoxious managers that I have come across. I know Vivek knows who I'm talking about, and I used to literally hate having the conversation with that guy. And one of the core reasons why I chose leadership is that I knew for a fact that I just don't want to become that person. And I just don't want to become that person for others. whom I am leading, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I chose being a agile leader. And whenever I used to have a conversation with him, whatever could be the reason, and this is back in the days when we used to have like in-person conversations and not a remote conversations, literally my lips used to shiver.
Yeah.
And it's not that I was fearful about him, I used to just hate the conversation. Having said that, I am very kind of an outspoken person. If I feel something, it would be right out on my face. I cannot hide that feelings. And I used to be equally headloggers with him, but my lips used to shiver like
Yeah.
anything. I mean, I used to feel that, and I used to have a sweaty palm.
Mhm.
I knew for the fact that the moment I knew that I'm going to have the conversation with this guy, I know that all this bodily
Yeah,
aggressive nature
sensitive.
used to happen. So yes, I mean that's so true to listen to the body.
Very good. All
Yes,
right.
so maybe moving on to the next part, or maybe the last two questions for this today's conversation. One is, I mean, this is for the beginner Scrum Masters who have questions. I mean, quite often is about dealing with conflicts. So conflicts and disagreements are like inevitable in any team, right? So can coactive coaching equip you with the skills to navigate the situation constructively and foster a culture of open communication and resolution? Because why I'm asking this question is, as beginner Scrum Masters, all of us fall into these mechanical ways of working, and Scrum does not tell us how to do it. It tells what to do, but does not tell us how to do it. So does proactive coaching help Scrum Masters in giving some skills, or maybe equip Scrum Masters in resolving conflicts of a team?
Absolutely. What I have done is I have expanded or applied the designed alliance suggestions or guidelines that the coactive toolkit recommends or offers for one-on-one designed alliance, and I've tried to expand it to a team context. So what is conflict? Very often conflict is because of two reasons: misaligned purpose or misaligned values. So
Correct.
what is the reason why we are unable to harness conflict? So I'll tell you my humanity. Whenever I had a conflict with someone, my life coach helped me discover this, Myers-Briggs helped me discover this. Whenever I had a conflict with someone, I would immediately attribute an evil, negative intent. So I would project, oh, this person is lazy. They just want to control everybody. They are optimizing for their next promotion. So there was a conflict, and I immediately jumped to, oh, their heart is evil. So I was curious, not furious. So I read somewhere, you got to be curious, not furious. So how can the techniques of and the principles or the model of coactive help you in constructive conflict resolution? One of the values of the coactive model is curiosity. The others are listening, intuition, self-management, deep and forward. All of these can apply. When we are designing an alliance with a team, the Scrum Master can be a facilitator. And one of the first questions that the Scrum Master might ask is, what do you want? Each person on the team is trying to liberate an angel in the marble. They see an angel. Someone is trying to create the best damn architecture, most scalable. Someone is trying to create the most beautiful user experience. Someone is trying to maximize revenue. Someone is trying to minimize total cost of ownership. We are all trying to liberate the angel in the marble. But if we're not curious to ask each other, here's the angel I'm seeing, what's the angel you're seeing? We will not realize when there is a conflict, what's the misalignment, right? So that's one question that a Scrum Master might ask when they are facilitating a designed alliance. The second is, who do we want to be? So there could be a multiple paths to liberate the angel in the marble. And we all come from different upbringings, social backgrounds, religious, ethnic backgrounds. And what might be acceptable in New York may not be acceptable in Alabama. What might be acceptable in Gurgaon might not be acceptable in Bangalore. So two important questions. What do you want, or what do we want? Who will we be? Third question, sometimes it might get difficult. Who will we be? How do we want to handle difficult situations? So these are some questions that we can use to design how we are going to be during conflicts. And then when a conflict occurs, there is a skill called articulate what's going on. I'm sensing conflict here. What are you guys sensing? Name it. Would it be okay if we use our designed alliance to navigate this conflict? What do you guys think? All right, let's do it. Let's go into the conflict because there's something magical waiting for us here. So let's go shoulder to shoulder into this treasure hunt. And there is a nugget of wisdom waiting, which can help us liberate the angel in the marble.
Oh wow! So that was an amazing tip, or maybe the things that we can use during conflict situation. I mean, those are very simple things. If we actually see it in a perspective, those are simple things, but these are the things that most of us don't get during the kind of a firefighting situation, right? So and I agree on your point. It's like be curious, not furious. And the moment, and it's a human tendency. I'm not saying that we have everyone is like in a zen mode, or everyone thinks it, or maybe reacts it keeping that thing in mind, not to be furious. But as a human tendency, we tend to judge a person and attribute an evil cause or maybe purpose, right? Saying that, so this person has done this, that means he's kind of thinking about me in a negative manner. So these are the wonderful questions to begin with, is what I would say. Maybe and another thing that I loved about this is uh, attributing it to some word, right? Maybe this could work over here. What do you think? Here again, we are not trying to solutionize as coaches, but inviting them to have a conversation around it, or giving them the direction, so that they can also come forward with some perspective, right? So this is also another important I think thing or message that we need to understand as scrum masters. And maybe the last thing for today's conversation is that for someone who is starting their journey as scrum master, what are your main takeaways about coactive coaching and its potential to empower them to become an effective coach?
Yeah, I think my closing thoughts, I will amplify what I said earlier. Uh, Get transparency. Self-awareness leads to self-management. Become clear about your life purpose, your professional purpose, and your Scrum Master purpose. Be clear about your life values, Scrum values, maybe the company values. And so that's a transparency. And then be curious, which is inspection. How might these be aligned? How is my job as a Scrum Master consistent with my professional purpose and life purpose? How are my values consistent, or the values of the company and the team consistent with my life values? And adaptation. What adjustments might I make to live a life of joy, fulfillment, and resonance? So apply transparency, inspection, adaptation, eat your own dog food to your own life, and look at the job of a Scrum Master and your experience of a Scrum Master through the lens of your life purpose and core values. That would be my closing invitation or suggestion to our listeners.
Wow, amazing way to end this. And thank you so much, Ravi, for doing this. It was an amazing learning, insightful learning, and eye opener for many of us, including many of our listeners, including us. And I would like to maybe give an advice to the listeners over here, is that whatever conversation that we had today with Ravi, if we have to maybe understand it in a deeper sense, obviously first we need to internalize ourselves and what we are trying to do, and whatever tips, techniques, tools, and values and principles that you have shared, Ravi, with our listeners. I think if they try to be empirical over here, is when they would understand how they can implement all of these things into their project or teams, or maybe in their learning. I would say this has been a great start of an year for us, with having with you as our guest and having such a conversation at a deeper level. And this is what we want to do ahead, uh, spreading across the right learnings to our podcast. So thank you so much for coming over and doing this with us, Ravi. It was a great pleasure having you.
Thank you. I want to thank you for two things. One, thank you for giving me an opportunity to just geek out because I love this stuff, right? And you gave me an opportunity to talk about something I'm passionate about. But there is a bigger gratitude that I and the world owe you. In America, our Surgeon General says there is a pandemic of loneliness. One of the worst things for a human being is to feel alone. And what you are doing through your podcast is that you are giving the gift of community. Scrum Masters are purpose driven, especially a middle class person like me. We might be brought up with a value system which says, screw all this value, touchy feely crap, man, just go get a job, keep your head down, and keep the salary. Okay. You're not a politician, you're not a gangster, you get fired, there is no hope, you'll be a panhandler. So many of us might feel lonely, that nobody understands me. And we are yearning to be seen, to be heard, to be held, and to be cared for. And that's what you are doing. And this is God's work. So I want to thank you for giving me the gift of community. And I want to thank you for touching so many lives that you may never realize you touched, because you are giving the gift of community. You are making people feel seen, heard, valued, and cared for and held with kindness, love, and caring. So thank you for that.
Oh, wow. I mean, you are being too kind and humble in sharing those things towards us. But honestly, we are just doing our bit. I'm not sure whether we are creating such an impact or not. Even if one person feels valuable through our podcast, then our job is done. But as I mentioned, you're being too kind. Vivek, over to you. I know you want to
Yes.
also talk.
Yes. No, no, Ramya, you absolutely were right saying that Ravi is too kind. He's being, uh, in a way he's trying to put us in such a part where he's saying that we are doing a lot of things to the community. But I believe, Ravi, with your journey and your experience working over 22 years or beyond that, you have created a lot of value by being selflessly devoting your time by writing blogs, articles, videos, everything. So maybe I would say our journey into podcasting or serving the community might have begun a year back, but I think you have been doing it for a lot of years. And I think we take that inspiration from people like you who have been serving the community. And in a certain way, each of our guests who have been into our podcast in a some or the other way has, have inspired us to continue doing this. So it's just a small step that we have taken, but yes, we want to go, far and beyond. And while doing that, if we are touching multiple lives and creating a value for them, that's that's what our purpose is. And as you have mentioned in the podcast, identify your purpose. And I think this is what our purpose is, and that is what keeps us, driving us in the right direction. So thank you, Ravi, again for
Thank you.
coming in, sharing your thoughts, start of the year. This has been a wonderful experience doing this podcast with you, and we would really like to thank you again. And yes, this was again a wonderful experience having you over here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode patiently till the end. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll meet you again in the next episode. Till then, if you like our podcast show, then do like, share, subscribe, and let us know your feedback in the comment section. You can also listen to the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. Thank you.